Welcome to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm Melissa King, your podcast host, certified master health coach, certified personal trainer, and founder of Wellness Abundance Coaching. The purpose of this podcast is to share healthy lifestyle tips to empower you to design the abundant life you want and deserve. I'll chat with inspiring people who have built a strong foundation to build a life they love. I believe we all have the power within ourselves to create wellness abundance in all areas of our life. We simply need to find the courage within ourselves to take action. Our vision for this podcast is to help you create wellness abundance in your life with clarity, empowerment, and flexibility. Grab your favorite beverage and enjoy the episode. My guest today is Emily Derrick. Emily is a licensed marriage and family therapist specializing in infertility and third-party reproduction. My conversation with Emily was very educational for me, and I hope it is for you as well. We talked about some implications of IVF and egg donation, along with why it's super important to work with a mental health professional like Emily when choosing this route to have a child. I'm so excited to have Emily on the podcast again in the future, as there's so much more to cover on this topic of infertility and third-party reproduction. So just a few disclaimers with this specific episode. So first of all, there are some distractions in the background, not very often, but there's a couple motorcycles driving by, some other vehicles driving by, so I apologize in advance if they are any distraction to you while listening or watching this episode. Second of all, when Emily and I recorded this podcast, I was recovering from COVID, and the cough lingered a little bit longer, the congestion lingered a little bit longer, so I did my best to keep my cough and the clearing of my throat and the nose sniffling at bay, but there are a few times in this recording that I just could not control it. So I appreciate you and your patience and your willingness to just be a little bit easier on me with the COVID distractions. So anyways, I am fully recovered by COVID at this time, so I'm super excited about that. Anyways, now I hope you really enjoy this episode because it really was a great, like I said before, very educational conversation with Emily Derrick. Welcome to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm so excited to speak with my guest today, Emily Derrick. Emily and I connected through a networking group. So I'm super excited to chat with Emily today because Emily is, she's a marriage and family therapist, but she focuses on infertility and third-party reproduction. And I was so excited to meet Emily because I've never met a therapist who specializes in this kind of work. And I know that this is a topic that I don't know a lot about. I mean, I've learned a lot from you, Emily, from our conversations that we've had so far. But I feel like this is a topic that it doesn't really get discussed a lot, like out in the open. And so I feel like this is a really great opportunity to really just get it out there more. So Emily, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you do as a therapist in your background, or just whatever you'd like to share with us.
I want to first off respond to what you said. Infertility is a huge stigma.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing a therapist is stigmatized. Having any mental health concerns, we always have to show up just so buttoned up and presentable and happy to the world. And seeing a therapist is a little taboo still, unfortunately. And to see a therapist for fertility problems, you're just stacking taboos on top of each other. People don't talk about their experience with infertility, even though it affects so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a quick note on that too, with therapy just in general being a taboo, is like I went and saw a therapist like over 20 years ago when I was going through a really bad breakup. And it took a lot. Like I went kicking and screaming.
Mm.
And it was highly encouraged by my sister to go. And so I went, and I've since then I've been a big believer in seeing a therapist, at any point in your life, and just being comfortable with it and okay with it. So okay,
Yeah.
so go on.
It's wellness. It's just part of
Mhm.
wellness. That's all it
Yes.
is.
Yes, it is. It totally is. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. As a therapist, I work with people who need support on their conception journey. So, this could be someone that's already established with a fertility clinic, and they're moving on to, using donor gametes to conceive or surrogacy. Or it could be someone that's just kind of getting started. Maybe it's been a year, they've been trying to conceive on their own, they're not sure what to do next. Um, I work with just the whole gamut of people trying to conceive and need some extra support doing so. Um, Now, when someone does work with a fertility doctor and they try IUIs, they try IVF, they still can't conceive, and the doctor is recommending that they move on to using donor gametes or surrogacy. The fertility doctors require that you speak with a mental health professional about the
Mm.
implications of that decision that you're making. So it's psychoeducational, it's a consultation, it is not a fitness of parenthood test. That's what I tell all of my clients. This is not to determine if you are going to be a parent or not going to be a parent. And during that session, I share information with them. I pose hypothetical situations that most people are like, oh my God, I've never even like thought about that. And uh, just present as much information as I can to these people so that they can make the most informed decision in moving forward with using third party reproduction.
Oh gosh, that's really cool. I love that that's one of the great benefits of seeing a therapist, regardless of what see a therapist for, is like you have an outsider, you have a professional who is trained in this specific field, this specific work, and is an expert,
Mm-hmm.
and like you ask your clients like questions that they never would have thought of.
Exactly. Like, let's say you have 10 extra embryos, you're done creating your family. What do you do with those? Do you keep them forever? Do you destroy them? Do you donate them to someone else? Like, all of the choices have implications, and it depends on your personal beliefs, your religious beliefs, um, you know, so many different factors. And it has implications for your children and potential children that could be born from those embryos. Or let's say you have a baby and you're done, just one is good for you, and you have extra embryos. How long do you hold on to those for? God forbid something happens to your child. Do you hold on to those for 5 years? Like, what happens if your child dies? Do you want to conceive again? Or do you not want to? Your age comes into factor as well.
Yes.
So you hold on to them for 10 years. Well, maybe now you're 55. Does that make an impact on your decision to move forward?
Yeah, and I feel like people get so wrapped up in, I just want to have a child,
Yeah,
and I will do anything I can to have a child, and they don't think of, they're just laser focused on, I want to have a baby, I want to have a baby, and then they don't think about all these other things. So,
and what's really important is the best interest of the child, right? And it's
yes.
so hard to separate yourself from that when you have something that you want so badly, you know?
Hmm.
So that's where I can come into play, and having these kind of conversations with you when you're doing the psychoeducational consultation with me, or just like ongoing therapy. Like, what does this mean for you? What does it
Hmm.
mean to make a decision to discontinue? Like that's part of the discussion as well.
Yeah, so this this question just popped into my head. Do you
Yeah.
ever like go through this process with a client and like before they've like this is just like the consulting process where they're thinking about it, they're considering it. Do you ever have anyone who maybe changes their mind after meeting with you?
I can't say. So
Okay.
no one has stopped me in the session and said, like, you know what, this is too much. I need to think about this more. They just, I think, mostly take that information home with them
Okay.
and they process it more. I provide tons of resources. I have resources free on my website that I'm continually adding. I don't want to be a gatekeeper for this information.
Mhm.
I share some information during the call with my clients. It's available on the website, and that's for them to think about on their own, you know?
Yeah.
So when I'm done with the consultation, I do send a one sheet letter over to the fertility clinic that's requesting it. And I just inform them that we've talked about, their decision to move forward with egg donors or a sperm donor or whatever. And we talked about these certain topics, and it just is what it is.
hmm
We did this thing that's required by your clinic. It's been completed. Here you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting to me because I know there have been times when I've gone to therapy and gone in like with like a mindset of this is what I want to do, this is how I want to live my life, and then after a session or two or three or however many, walked away being like, you know what, I see things in a different perspective now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
So
why it can be a little bit hard. Some feedback I've gotten from some clients in doing the consultation was, wow, like I didn't realize it was going to be like this
yeah.
because some of the things I bring up are a little bit controversial, right?
hmm
So, but these are the important, hard things for you to think about before you get pregnant, before you pick a donor.
Yeah.
You know? So these are things to consider now. Um, they're difficult to think about, and I'm sorry, but it's in the spirit of making the best informed decision moving forward for you and your family
Yeah.
and for the resulting child, as I mentioned. It's
Yeah.
really what's in the best interest of the child.
Yeah, I feel like people who want to be parents don't not I'm not speaking for everyone but and I'm not a parent myself but like that they don't really some people just don't really think about the child
Mhm.
and just in general like people who say they want to have kids they don't necessarily all the time think like what kind of life can I provide for this child. So, and I don't want to get like political or anything, but
Mhm.
I feel like now with what's happening, you know, um, in certain states, I mean, we're in California, so we don't really have much to worry about. But with the whole egg donor thing, like having your eggs,
Yeah,
that's even more complicated now, you know, legally in
it is. It
in a
is.
lot of states. So I feel
Yeah,
like your work, what you are doing is even more important. Now it gets taken the importance
yeah,
to the net like way like probably like 10 levels above
yeah.
where it was before this summer.
And you're right. It's not necessarily a political issue. It's just like a legal issue. What's legal in
hmm
certain states, and when does um, a person become a person? Does it happen
hmm
at conception? So it's impacting people's ability to destroy embryos.
hmm
It might be forcing them to donate embryos to someone else. And that might not be in the best interest of the child. It might not be in the best interest of the family. Um, and I feel like these conversations need to start happening before you do IVF in those kinds of states.
hmm
So it's not even about donor eggs. It's not about surrogacy at that point. It's okay, just to let you know, if we create embryos via IVF, you might not be able to destroy these. What are your thoughts and feelings about that? How do you think you can proceed? What are some of the options available to you? And honestly, people are leaving the state to
mm.
seek treatment. So that can be one way around it a little bit. But, obviously, if you live in a state like Texas where there are abortion bans and things like that, then there are implications for you should you need to have an abortion out of medical necessity. So
Yeah.
there's ways to kind of skirt around some of the things, but at the end of the day, just being in a state that's not um, friendly to, IVF embryos, women's reproductive rights is just hard overall.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is it's a very delicate topic
Mhm.
in a way because it is so complicated and there's just so many things to consider. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So, what inspired you to get into this type of work?
It's a long story that goes back a while, but the short version is that I knew that I wanted to focus on psychology in undergrad. So I got my degree in psychology and I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. But while I was in undergrad, I was looking for a job on Craigslist and I saw an ad looking for egg donors. And I considered it heavily and ultimately decided that it was a really beautiful thing to give to someone. So I completed an egg donation cycle in 2008. And after I graduated, not wanting to pursue being a therapist at that time, I was working at an egg donation and surrogacy agency, which seemed like a great fit. I had the psychology background. I've been a donor before, so I know what that all entails. So that's where I landed. And it was there working with the recipient parents that I decided that these are my people. This is the field I love. These are the people I want to work with. And, I am ready to be a therapist. I want to help these people. So while I was working there, I went through 5 more egg donation cycles and I applied to grad school and got in. And I actually got into Pepperdine. So I was at the Pepperdine location in Encino. And then the job I was at had me relocate to San Francisco. So I moved up there and finished grad school at USF.
Wow, that's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. It's so cool that how you found this path.
Yeah.
Like you
Kind of
decided in
just
the
a whim.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
I was just looking for a job, that could have been retail or whatever. I was hoping for something in the field of psychology. That would be cool. And I didn't even like think that this was a thing, like I've obviously heard of sperm donors, but
Mhm.
never considered that egg donation was as big as it is and that this could be something that I could do. And at the end of the day, I said, you know what? It's not about the money. It's about helping someone like realize their dream. And it seemed like a beautiful thing to me at the time. So that's why I
Mm,
decided to move forward.
yeah. I gotta say that's really heartwarming to hear you say that. And I could feel that from you, when you speak about it,
Mhm.
even though we're virtual right now.
Yeah.
But even the other times we've chatted in person, it's just so like I feel like this is just what you're meant to do at this time in your life. And Craigslist too.
Yeah.
Like back in what, 2008 you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And Craigslist now is like I don't even think about
No,
Craigslist
I don't either. No,
anymore, but back then that was when it was really popular.
that's where you
You did a
found
lot on
free
Craigslist.
things. You
Yep.
found jobs and you found people renting rooms,
Yep.
apartments to rent or whatever. So yeah, I found the ad for being an egg donor on Craigslist, and then I found my job working at the egg donation agency on Craigslist, and that's history.
Okay, so if you're looking for a career opportunity, check Craigslist. I guess that's the lesson here. The takeaway from this interview is go to Craigslist. Now, I actually did give away a bed frame couple years ago, I think, on Craigslist. It was just we're just giving it away for free, and
Yeah.
it was actually super easy to do, and um, so yeah.
And now, I think we're moving out of, but we're still in the realm of advertising on Facebook,
Hmm.
right? So I've seen, because I work in the field and I do all these kinds of searches, I'm getting these ads for, egg donation agencies on my Facebook feed.
Hmm.
So, it used to be predominantly run through Craigslist because you could post free ads.
Hmm.
And, now we're on Facebook, and um, also people are utilizing TikTok and Instagram to like post videos to try to capture people's interests. So it's an ever evolving community.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All online.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah. So what would you say is the most challenging part of the work you do?
I think that you will agree. It's when people don't want to do the work.
Yes. Oh my
So
gosh.
they hire
Yeah.
you for services, right? They show up. They might show up week after week. They're like, well, I'm here. I made it. Fix me. But they don't want to do the work themselves. I would say that's the hardest thing.
Yeah. So how do you approach that with a client? How do you handle that with a client?
It's a little bit of a confrontation. You just have a discussion about it. Like, hey, I've suggested X, Y, and Z kind of tools for you. Some people I offer tools for, other people I don't. It just depends on, what their experience is and what they're looking for, what their goals are. And, trying to see if we need to kind of switch things up a little bit, do things differently. And it gives them an opportunity to, express their feelings, like where they're at, and if they're just not ready for this. So
Hmm.
sometimes they need to just take a break, um, or, figure out a different direction we need to go in. And yeah, I mean, if you want to find a job and you're only willing to look for jobs in one specific place, those are the jobs you're limited to, right?
Hmm.
If you expand your search, you might find a job faster. But if you're unwilling to do so, then like you have what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, I get asked a lot when I'm doing like a free consultation with a client, like not every single person. I do have some people reach out to me who are like, okay, I'm ready to make changes. What I'm doing right now is simply not working. I know I need to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I need some professional help. I know
Mm-hmm.
I need someone to help guide me. But I have other people who ask me, can you guarantee that I'm going to lose 50 pounds in the next year or whatever their goal is? And my answer is always no.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I cannot guarantee the results. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be willing to do the work and to be open-minded.
Yep.
You have to go into this with an open mind and an open heart. Even
Yep.
if it's in the beginning, if it's just slightly,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit, like the door's just cracked
Yep.
a little bit,
Yep.
that's enough. That's
Yep.
just enough for you to kind of get started.
You can
And
get started, but are you going to lose 50 pounds? Like maybe it just depends on where you're at, right?
yeah. Yeah, and really just helping them become more open-minded as we're working together.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm not sure if you've experienced that as well, working with your clients.
Yeah, and first of all, part of the difficulty with therapy for people, it being such a stigmatized thing, is that you really need to find a good fit with a therapist.
Yes.
So that's first and foremost. And just like with you, I'm sure, like if you don't mesh with your coach, then you're probably not going to get very far.
Hmm.
Like I have a certain background. Many other therapists in this field have done IVF. Maybe they have children conceived via egg donor, via surrogate. So they're going to have a different kind of perspective than I do, and that could be a positive or a negative thing for you.
Hmm.
So fit is a really good indicator of success, and openness and willingness to try things. And like if there's like trauma, complex trauma involved, that might be a little bit of a roadblock that's hard for a client to kind of process and get through. So depends on what the problem is. But as long as you show up and you're present and you try to do the work, then I would say you're likely to make some progress.
Mm-hmm.
But one question I get asked is, well, how long will I be in therapy?
Mm-hmm.
So similar to you with, can you guarantee results?
Yeah.
Like, well, I would say on average, people are in therapy for about 4 months. I would say that's a pretty good kind of a ballpark, but it could be. I'm currently working with someone that I've been working with for a year and a half.
Mm.
So some people, depending on what their issue is, what they're coming to therapy for, they could be in therapy kind of long term. They could come for 2 months and get what they need and feel like they're okay enough for now. They want to take a break and then they come back to you 6 months later because they need more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all just super individualized.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for me personally, my therapy experience, that's what it's been for me,
Mhm.
really kind of an as needed
Yep.
basis. And sometimes it's some of the my therapy stints have been a little bit longer than others, depending on what was happening in my life and how I was
Exactly.
feeling.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what would you say? This might be an easier question than the last one, but what would you say is like the most rewarding part of your work?
When a client brings home a baby.
Ah,
So, like hearing about positive pregnancy tests, like those are great. Um, Hitting the second trimester, getting the first ultrasound, like these are all just milestones, right? So
mm-hmm,
there's room for a little bit of celebration after all of these things. But I, I feel like most people, women especially, are literally just holding their breath until the baby actually arrives. And even when the baby arrives, it doesn't even feel real all the time.
yeah.
Like, am I actually the mom? Like, is this happening? Did this already happen? So yeah, it's when the baby finally arrives.
Yeah, that's such a big life change. I mean,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, in a way, when you're pregnant, you are taking care of you're growing a human being inside of you. So you are taking care of a
It's
human
a
being.
whole nother level.
But then it's actually alive. And I'm not a parent myself, but
Yeah.
I hear so many parents say, like, okay, my goal today is to keep my kid alive
Yeah.
till the end
Yeah.
of the day. And then I do the exact same thing tomorrow and the day
Yep.
after that. That's my main goal, is to keep my kid alive.
And sub goals would be maybe to shower and maybe to eat 3 meals a day,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So, do you work with women and even maybe like both parents, like after the baby comes?
That is definitely something that I offer.
Hmm.
So what it's more geared towards, and what I want to put out there is support for people who are raising children who are donor conceived. So it's not just like regular parenting kinds of things. Of course, I can work with new moms who are just kind of struggling. But when you get a little bit more specialized, like the field of infertility, it's how do I now raise this child who is donor conceived? What are some special considerations I need to put into place?
Hmm.
When do I start telling them that they're donor conceived? How do I do that? I have tons of books on my website that I recommend for having those conversations with your children. There's books for the parents on there as well. So everyone gets books. And yeah, it's those are really nice conversations because it shows that the parent is super involved and is looking out for the
Hmm.
best interests of their children.
Yeah.
They want to just make sure that they're doing everything that they can to fully support their child on their, social emotional level as well.
Hmm. Yeah. I want to kind of talk a little bit also about. I know we talked about this last week when we met, but like anonymous
Yeah.
donations
Yeah.
and kind of like what are the like some of the pros and cons with that? Like, what would you share with a client who either
Yeah.
like was it on either end of the spectrum, on either side?
So let me start by saying that the pros of anonymous egg donation is that the parent is not put in a position where they are uncomfortable having to talk to their child about it.
Mhm.
And that's it. So I'll say that all of my egg donations, except one, were anonymous. I did meet one of the parents before we actually matched, one set of parents. And this was at a time where donor anonymity was starting to kind of be questioned by parents, prospective
Mm.
parents, and they were asking to have the contact information for their donor. They were asking for identifying information for their donor. So since I was working in the field and I heard that stuff happening, I offered. So I'm really grateful that I did, and I do have contact with one of the sets of parents, and their boy girl twins are 10 years old now. So
Mm.
it definitely was just kind of standard practice for such a long time. Like
Mhm.
sperm donation, like that's a similar ball of wax, but
Mhm.
it was thought that men would not sign up to be sperm donors unless there was zero ties.
Mm.
But what studies have shown is that it's in the best interest of the child if they have contact with the donor. Whether that means that the donor is a family member or a friend, and the donor is just kind of in the child's life, or you just have the capability of shooting an email over to the donor and asking questions. Um, Being able to update family medical history is huge, and it goes both ways.
I was gonna ask about that, like
Yeah,
the medical history.
because when donors are donating, they're 21, 22, 23. And at that point, your parents are, I don't know, 50,
Hmm.
55. They're not super old yet, right? So,
Right.
you have a whole generation that could start having medical issues. They could start having cancer and things like that pop up. Yeah, I know that for myself. I've done allergy testing, like food allergies
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
environmental allergies. And it's not just for me to share information with the parents, it's information that I can receive as well. Um, so there was a book I just listened to on Audible called Brave New Humans. And in that book, the author meets a woman who was donor conceived, and all the examples in there are from sperm donor conceived people. And she was diagnosed with like some kind of a cancer, like a rectal cancer or something like that,
Mm.
colon cancer, and it was like stage 4. And she wanted to reach out to her donor to let her donor know because, first of all, the donor could be impacted by the same condition, right?
Hmm.
So you could save the donor's life. And if the donor donated elsewhere, then they can pass that information along to other offspring as well. So
Yeah.
the information train goes both ways, and it's super important. But just for the emotional development of the child, that can be important for them, and it's not for everyone, right? So, like if you grew up with a dad who was not present, who was never there, who was like not warm and fuzzy, and your parents got divorced when you were really young, and you never really saw that dad again, you might be like, oh, whatever. My mom's here, my
Hmm.
mom's great. I don't need my dad. But for some people, for a lot of people, it's mostly about knowing where you came from, knowing who you look like. And more so, it's about having contact with your genetic siblings. So there's a website called the Donor Sibling Registry, and it's a place for egg donors, sperm donors to sign up, and also families like donor conceived people or the parents of donor conceived children. And I think that most of the time, the children don't really care so much about the donor. but they want to meet their siblings. And it could be as much as, it could be as little as, they have one sibling, two siblings, three siblings. Or for some of the old sperm donor cases from the 50s, you could be looking at 40 siblings, 50 siblings.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think about that. Like all the
So,
siblings.
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's cool that website sounds awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like it's a great resource.
it is.
Hmm, that's cool. Yeah, because if you grow up as an only child, I've got, I'm not an only child. I have an older brother and an older
Mhm.
sister. But my sister and I talk sometimes like, even though the three of us drove each other crazy as kids,
Yeah.
as adults, we're really close now. But my sister and I say sometimes like, God, we can't even imagine like growing up as an only child. Like
And
it
imagine
was
growing up not looking like either of your parents.
That's yes, that's the other thing that I'm curious what like if that is a concern or like maybe not necessarily a concern, but just maybe a topic that's brought up during your therapy sessions. Like how do I handle like my kid saying like, mm, I don't look like you or dad. Like what's happening? Who am I?
If you have those conversations early and often, by age 3, you start introducing that topic, then it's not a question. It's,
Mm,
my eyes look like Emily's eyes,
mm,
you know? So that information is present, and growing up kind of always knowing has been found to be kind of just the best policy.
mhm.
There aren't necessarily any questions, or your parents have already shared everything with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the medical history
Yeah.
part. So when you donate eggs
Mhm.
or even sperm donors, is that a requirement? Like, do you have to list your known medical history?
Yes.
So the
Yes.
the person receiving the
Mhm.
egg will, knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's it's the qualifications for the
Sorry, it's
qualifications for being an egg donor or sperm donor are fairly stringent.
mhm.
And the family medical history is part of it. Um, there's questions that like are FDA regulated, like um, what are what's your fertility history? Have you ever had sex for money? Is one of the questions
Mm,
that donors get asked as well. So there's a lot of different things that could disqualify you. Your age, your BMI, your body mass index.
mm,
There's a lot of different factors in there, and some of the things are just not such a big deal, and other things can be a big deal for certain people. Like you might pass, shall we say,
mhm,
and have your profile live as a donor on a website, but regarding the family that needs the donor eggs to conceive, if they have a similar kind of family history with relation to a medical condition, then they might just opt to use a different donor because it could, negatively impact their child.
mhm.
But they also do have a genetic screening, or I'm sorry, it's a genetic consultation. I'm not sure what it's called, where the geneticist will look over the donor's family medical history with yours, and kind of talk to you about certain implications that might arise if a child is conceived using those genes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of information that's given up front
There is. Yeah.
for them to make like the best decision for them.
Yep.
Good. I figured as much. But I didn't want to assume. So
But
good.
the scary thing is that there are a lot of private donations happening,
Mm,
more so with sperm because sperm is easier to acquire, transport.
sure.
And a lot of these steps can be skipped. They,
Hmm.
especially if a clinic doesn't require the donor to be psychologically screened or evaluated. They're not checking to see how many times the donor has donated, which for sperm is easy to do a lot of,
Hmm.
and for you to just kind of lie about that information. So some of those important steps are being skipped, and it's having negative implications on the children.
Hmm. Yeah, just to bring a little light to the conversation.
Yeah,
I always think of like I don't know if you're a Friends TV show fan,
yeah, yeah.
but it's my favorite sitcom. But there is an episode in the beginning of season 3 where Monica wants to have a baby.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
she's looking at sperm donors and she's
Hmm.
going through the list. They're all going through the list and they're listing all these traits. Italian, comes
Hmm.
from a big family, comment, Nick's rule all. And Joey's like, yeah, yeah, Nick's rule all. And it's Joey because
Yeah.
Joey had donated sperm. And I'm like, I wonder if they allow comments like that, like, oh, the Nick's rule all or
Well,
something, or like, do they have like interests or
they do have
like
interests. That's
it
that's
comes
one of
from
the
a
big
big
things.
family, or do they have those details, or did the Friends writers just kind of make that up just for fun?
No, I mean, it depends on what clinic you're working with, what egg donor agency you're working with, like where the donor is coming from will determine kind of what profile you are able to receive. So, the agency that I worked with, at the very end of their profile questionnaire stuff, there was a box for them to kind of write a message to the recipient parents.
Okay.
So that was just like a statement from the donor to the recipients. Um, but interests were in there. Like I know when I did my donor profile, it was, I love going to the movies. I love independent films, love the beach, like, hiking, snowboarding, like all of these different things. So I would say the interests are high on there on the list of people's requirements. It's not so much always about, having the same eye color um, as the mom. It's not
Hmm.
about having the same hair color, eye color, skin tone, whatever,
Hmm.
um, as it is about, being raised in a family that shares similar interests as you, potentially, right? Um,
Yeah.
so it just, depends on whatever is important to you as a parent. But yeah, it's kind of like an online dating profile. And
Okay.
so, as much as I hate to give this example, I really feel like it's pertinent. The genetic parent of your future child.
Hmm.
So, you really are looking for that kind of magical feeling when you do see the profile.
Yeah.
And you might have access to hundreds and hundreds of them, right?
Hmm.
So it's, just you'll have a feeling, you'll know.
Yeah. It's kind of like choosing a partner too,
It is.
because before I met my husband 10 years ago, I had, you know, dated,
Hmm.
different guys. And just then when I met Scott, it was just like, all right, this is it,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
And still to this day, over 10 years later,
Yep.
it's the same thing. Like this is, you just know,
You do.
like it's your
Yeah.
every single being, like every single bone and cell
Hmm.
in your body just knows that this is right.
Yeah.
So I
And
can,
it could feel like a really good thing, and then you get to one thing on the profile, and you're like, "Ooh, that's a red flag," right? Just like
yes,
just like dating, you'd be
just like dating. Yeah.
like, guy's amazing, and then you find out he doesn't eat vegetables. You're like, you're 35, you don't eat vegetables.
Yeah.
It depends on what your red flag is. It depends on what
Yeah.
doesn't work for you. And I think the advice that I give the most is, pick one or two things that are important for you, and
Mm,
look for those things. Because is it imperative that the donor that you're looking for has the exact same hair color, eye color, looks exactly like you, and also has the same interests as you, and is no shorter than five, six,
Yes. Oh
you
gosh,
know?
that drives me nuts. Yeah, like the height thing with dating, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are people out there that will not settle for a donor that has less than whatever GPA and that is less than so
Mm,
tall. And these are things you can try to control for, but ultimately the baby you get is the baby you get. You
yep.
know, everyone's looking for blue-eyed blonde hair donors. Those are recessive traits.
Hmm.
Who knows what your baby's going to look like, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had a girlfriend years ago who she's Filipino.
Hmm.
Her ex-husband is Hispanic,
Hmm.
and her youngest daughter um, came out blonde, blue eyes, and pale skin. When we would go out, they thought Emily was my daughter and not Sally's.
Yeah.
And it's because Sally's mom,
Hmm.
I can't remember if it was her mom or her ex-husband's mom, who's a white blonde woman.
Hmm.
So Emily got the traits from grandma. But so
Yeah.
yeah, so you never know. But people
You
always
know.
thought she was mine. And I'm like, no, she's not mine. But yeah, so yeah, you're right. You never know what. For me personally, if I were to do that, if I were choosing, I would probably choose overall health,
Yeah,
like
that's super important.
someone's health history.
But again, like it's so up in the air because you could have three donor profiles that you love. All of them are super healthy and their families are healthy. And then in 10 years, the donor that you pick, her all of the elders in her
Yeah.
family have like what was I just saying? BRCA1, BR and 2 genetic breast cancer gene.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you just don't know. So like the
Yeah.
profile is not necessarily verifiable. Like
Hmm.
things like GPA, you can kind of verify things like that, but um, you're really just trusting that the donor is providing the most accurate information
Hmm.
at the time that she's providing it.
Yeah.
And that's going to change over time. So you do your
Yep.
best, you make your best decision. Culture, I think culture is a really big sticking point for a lot of people.
Mm.
Um, and culture and interest, I would say. So I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. But, obviously it's a perk if the donor looks like the prospective mother and if
Hmm.
you're looking for an egg donor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all kind of just a crapshoot with
Yeah.
everything because the environment that the child is raised in makes a big difference too. With health too.
Hmm.
You know, I have family members who aren't the healthiest, who I share genes with, and because I take care of myself, eat whole foods, get sleep, move my body frequently, get sunshine
Hmm.
regularly, I'm thankful that you could put those, you could turn those genes off,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah. So it's all kind of, yeah, what's important to you. So what advice would you give someone who is having fertility challenges?
Number one, take charge. Um, Ask yourself what you need and really, really ask yourself what you need, what your body needs, what your mind needs, what your heart needs, and take steps towards getting to that point. I think that the best thing to do is to get all the resources you can in the very beginning of the process.
Mm.
I would say that if you were working with a fertility doctor and you had an embryo transfer and you got pregnant and then you miscarried at 8 weeks, um, that's probably, well, it's devastating. But
Hmm.
when you're in such a fragile state, are you going to want to ask your fertility doctor for a referral for a therapist? It might be harder to make that phone call to the fertility doctor and then to a therapist versus if you already had that information up front.
Hmm.
So do your due diligence and get whatever information you can up front. Um, if you haven't, find a fertility doctor. They're the ones to kind of guide this journey. So that's the first step. Find a therapist, make changes to your environment that can positively impact your chances of conceiving.
Mm.
as we've talked about before, removing endocrine disruptors. So,
Mm.
whether that's stuff from the home, like replacing your beauty products with clean beauty products,
Yes.
replacing your home cleaning products. The biggest thing that we use to clean the house is vinegar and water.
Mm-hmm.
Just a 1-to-1 ratio is actually a disinfectant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's so cheap.
Yes, it's so cheap. Yeah, for vinegar,
Yeah,
like a gallon jug of vinegar is like $1 or $2
right.
at the grocery store,
Yeah,
if that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Removing perfumes. So this can be any
Yes.
products that have scents to them. Like feminine products, like tampons, pads. Like, why do these things
Mm.
have to smell?
Oh my
I,
gosh.
I,
Yes.
there's no need for them to smell nice. Like it gives you a little like endorphin boost when you open the package. Like, oh, that's refreshing. But then you're gonna put that where?
Yeah. I know, and I think back of I feel like even like before I really got into like the more holistic health and wellness space, like not just as a career, but for me personally,
Mhm.
I looking back, I'm like, I don't ever remember buying like any scented tampons or pads or anything like that because I always thought like a really good like tampon or pad and with just good proper hygiene as a woman,
Mhm.
showering daily, like there shouldn't be any other odors, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that
yeah.
yeah, and the men probably don't want to who are listening to this probably don't want to hear this, um but yeah, and I feel like and I'm
But you
glad
also
you
don't know because
yeah.
when I look back, like when I was a teenager, I wasn't thinking about whether it was scented or unscented, but I guarantee you there was probably scent in there,
Yep.
that probably just, stimulated the brain to make you desire that product more subconsciously. So now you have your favorite product and it's got scents in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because there's so many things, and I just started learning this like 10 years ago, like how impactful our cleaning products, our beauty products, our hygiene products,
Yeah.
like deodorant is a great example.
Yeah. Big one.
Yeah, what we put on our skin every day,
Yep.
our makeup, our mascara, which even though mascara doesn't technically really touch your skin, but it still has a way to get absorbed into
Sure.
your bloodstream. But yeah, bringing all this up, there's so many things that we can control. And I
Yeah.
feel like nowadays there's so many really great like feminine hygiene companies out there that have been started by women.
Yeah.
One that I love, and I'm not affiliated with them or anything, just FYI, I just really like their products,
Mhm.
is Honey Pot.
I've heard of them.
They do offer like it's scented, but it's like herbal.
Yeah.
It's to really help with like some if you have any issues down there.
Mhm.
I don't know, the founder of the company was having some female issues and she found this formula that really worked. It was a holistic natural
Mhm.
products,
Yeah.
but they offer like unscented
Mhm.
and everything, and there's like the cup
Yep.
that you could use. um
Put a cup in it.com.org.
is that
I think
a
it
website?
helps.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look into that. I love that.
Yeah, I think that it's just like an advocacy for cup usage, and
Okay.
it helps you decide what cup to buy
Okay,
and
that's
what might
awesome.
work best for you. So there's a questionnaire, and then they offer solutions.
That's cool. That's really neat. I didn't know
Yeah.
that was available. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But so many
yeah,
things that we
yeah.
are exposed to, like candles,
Mm.
perfume. Like I stopped wearing perfume. I have some that has basically essential oils in it. I think there's actually like rosemary and sage in the bottle.
Oh,
And I even like I forget to wear it
excuse
even.
me.
It's okay. Um, but watching what you eat, like you said, whole foods.
Yep.
And I had to just Google it. It's like, what is the benefit of having fresh fish, ocean caught fish versus
Hmm.
farmed fish? I didn't realize that farmed fish is high in endocrine disruptors.
Yep. Yep.
So that's that. Obviously it's cheaper. It might taste the same to you, you know, and I was thinking, well, is this even necessary? Because we buy fresh fish,
Hmm.
won't buy farmed. And yeah, it's necessary. Like
Yeah.
you're growing little people. You don't want
Hmm.
to expose yourself to things like that. That could negatively impact them again. Limit your drug and alcohol consumption,
Hmm.
which comes into play a lot for men because men think that they can smoke pot and it's not going to impact their fertility.
Hmm.
And apparently that's not the case. And, if you're consuming like a lot of alcohol, that could impact um, your hormones as well. So like there's a lot of things that you can do. And what I see a lot of is women, especially because they're the ones trying to carry a baby, get so obsessed with doing all of the things. Like they search for fertility diets, they do special like diets to like lose
Mm.
weight, and they're um, uh, depleting the nutrients in their body, and they're not getting enough calories. And there's certain things that can be really harmful when you're trying to conceive, even though you think that you're doing everything that you can. But just check with the basics, things that we already discussed, like the food that you eat, the scents, the cleaners, the cleaning products, do whatever you can to make a positive impact. And aside from that, trust your fertility doctor. And, if you've been with your fertility doctor for a while and you're not seeing success, you have the ability to switch to a different doctor.
Yes, yes. I am a big proponent, especially being in the health coaching space that I am, the
Yeah.
health coaching school that I went through, of learning how to be an advocate for yourself with your
Mhm.
doctors, that could be
Mhm.
plural, and really just doing your own research and coming to your doctor and saying, hey, this is what I read online. What's your professional opinion on it? And if they're kind of shunning it, or, it's could be because they're just not educated on
Mhm.
that specific topic. They're not up to date on the research, but
Yeah,
it's okay to go get a second opinion. It's
it
okay to go
is.
find a new doctor.
It is. And I will say with fertility, it's a slippery slope because
Mm.
there's a lot of information out there that's provided by other women that are going through a fertility journey.
Hmm.
And a lot of it can be BS.
Hmm.
So, like, if you're reading things and you're feeling pulled towards a certain direction, ask your doctor. But it might be something that they kind of shut down.
Hmm.
And if you want, go get a second opinion, and that's fine. But um, they're the ones that went to school.
Yeah, exactly.
They went to school. They
Yes.
went to med school.
Yep.
They have a lot more information than you do. So, like, yes, you want to put a lot of your trust in the doctor that you're working with, but know that you can switch to a different doctor if they're
Right.
not working well for you.
Yeah. And I feel like that also comes down to really just following your instincts.
Yeah.
There have been times when I've gone to our doctor, our primary care provider, for a
Mhm.
few things, and he's really good. Like the first time I went to him, he was like, so tell me a little bit about your lifestyle. Do you
Mhm.
exercise? Do you eat? And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't remember the last time like a doctor actually had a conversation with me and
Mhm.
asked me like, what's your diet like? Like, what do you eat? And so I told him, well, I eat mostly whole foods, animal protein, eggs, and vegetables, and occasionally some processed food, not very. I was like, oh, great, good, and
Yeah.
exercise routine. And I was like, but there were a few times that I was like, okay, I'm not one to really, like, he gave me a cortisone shot for a pain I was having in my wrist, and he was a little reluctant to do it because he's not one to just prescribe
Mhm.
medication or just give a cortisone shot to anyone.
Right, right.
But I was like, after that, I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Mm.
Never, ever doing that again. And, um, and I know that he was just trying to help me, relieve some of the pain
Mhm.
because it was really, I was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Um, but, but yeah, really just following your gut. And even if you don't know what the solution is, even if you're like, you know what, something's not just clicking, something's not adding up, I don't know what it is yet, really going out and exploring um, other professionals.
And yeah, I hear so much about like chiropractors, right?
Yeah.
Like chiropractic care can be beneficial for women who are trying to conceive. Okay.
Hmm.
But I've heard from chiropractors that, some of their clients come to them and they've been through so many different doctors. And they're like, and finally I decided to call you because no one else has been able to help me.
Hmm.
And it's like chiropractic care does not have to be last resort. Therapy does not have to be the last
Hmm.
resort. Like
Yeah.
working with a health coach does not have to be a last resort.
Right.
Like it's an investment in your future, whether that is the goal to be a parent or whatever, being healthier. Um, for my mom, it might be like being able to spend a whole day at Disneyland with your grandchildren and keep up,
Yes.
right? It's,
Yes.
what are your goals and how do you get there? And sometimes you might need to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're noticing that you're going a little crazy, you're overdoing it, you're not having the success you're looking for. You can hit the brakes, reevaluate, see what direction you need to go into. Maybe it's a different one. And it's totally normal for women, especially to take breaks from fertility treatment.
Mm.
Like doing hormone shots month after month after month after month is just so taxing on your body and your emotions and your marriage. And, it's okay to take a break.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that before, that the all the hormones being injected into your body is just puts you into this emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. And it's not just the hormones. It's, thinking like, is this the month? Is this the one that's going to take? And then you're dreaming about your future family. And then your dreams get shattered. And then what? You have maybe, if you're in an opposite sex couple, then you might have a husband who is, going through this with you as much as he can, but he's a man
Mm. Yeah.
and he doesn't get it.
Hmm.
And, having someone else to listen to you while you're on this journey that's, unbiased. And what I was thinking about earlier was I think what's so impactful about therapy when you're struggling to conceive is it's not just about the baby, it's about taking whatever challenges you have in your life already that exist. And the fertility on top of that just amplifies the dysfunction that you're already having in your own life.
Hmm.
So it's, yeah, like providing some emotional support around the fertility and things like that. But are there skills that you need to learn just for life that can help you get through your fertility treatments? Like I've worked with
Yeah.
people on communication skills,
Mm-hmm.
and that got them back into the fertility clinic that they took a break from and to be able to move forward. You know, it could be learning how to talk to your husband about the treatment that you're going through and asking for help with certain things. How can I involve my husband more in this process? Comes up a lot, you know? Um, and when I worked for the egg donation surrogacy agency, there was one man who I'll never forget. He had a unique first name, um, but he was the one that I was in contact with.
Mm.
I never spoke with the wife, I don't think at all, maybe once, but he was my contact person at the agency. or I was at the agency and he was my
Hmm.
contact person for the couple because the woman was going through the fertility treatments. I don't know what her job was like, but this was a way for him to be involved. And
Hmm.
it worked really well for them.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, because like men can empathize with us as much as possible, but
Right,
really without physically, mentally, and emotionally going through it,
right.
it's very difficult
Like a
for
miscarriage,
them.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what is a man supposed to think or feel about that?
Hmm.
You might like understand that it's a really big deal,
Hmm.
but you might not understand having to make a decision about whether it you have a DNC, right? About
Hmm.
like what course of action needs to take place. You might not understand the physical pain that you might be in as a woman, um, and how that shatters the dreams that you had of like, okay, this is a baby we're going to raise.
Hmm.
It's so much more complex, and like this field is just so interesting and so complex, and there's so many. It's a wide, deep well, is what I say, especially about
Yeah.
donor conception. But
Mhm.
how can we involve our partners in this journey? Female or male,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that the communication comes down to communication,
Yep.
because learning how to communicate how you're feeling effectively to help your partner,
Yeah,
understand to the best of their ability
yeah,
without personally going through it themselves.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll throw my little woo woo in there. I honestly believe that when like you are good, you're taking care of yourself, you've processed whatever you need to process about the journey you're going through, like you are feeling like at calm, at peace, centered about everything. I feel like those are the people that have more success.
Mm.
Like, not that this has necessarily been studied, but um, just when I worked at the agency, the clients that I'm seeing now, when you're really there and putting in that work and um, feeling at a good place mentally about all of this, I think you tend to have more success.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I don't have any experience in this specific field, but I believe that about anything.
Yeah,
And it doesn't mean you have to be this mellow, like laid back,
right,
like
right,
hippie person.
right.
You just have to learn how to, you kind of, in a way, have to have some sort of underlying calmness
Yeah.
about you when you do get discouraged. Like there is that month where you have a negative pregnancy
Mhm,
test.
mhm.
Like, how do you kind of go through maybe a little bit of grieving process and then move
Yep.
on to accept it, really becoming resilient, more resilient. It's all
Yep.
like, this is big in the entrepreneur space. I don't know if you've experienced this, but one of my
Mhm,
mentors, I will never forget him talking about this at an in-person mastermind I went to
mhm,
years back. Is he said, you have to learn to be resilient,
mhm.
like as an entrepreneur. That's what's going to make you a successful entrepreneur. So I feel like that's with life in general.
With everything. And I was just
Yeah.
thinking, I'm sure you might have a client who, I don't know, has a Snickers bar for breakfast. And for most people, they just are like, F it. The day is ruined. I will just continue eating like
Hmm.
all day. But you can just be like, oh, that was not a good decision. I could have done this differently. In the future, I'll do this differently. Let's turn it around. It's still early in the day. I can still have a really great lunch. I can still have a great dinner. I can still work out. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like mindset has so much to do with everything that we do. Like
Hmm.
mindset is super impactful.
Yep. And that's really the thing that I work with my clients mostly, is
Mhm,
we talk a lot about mindset.
mhm.
Um, yeah, which as I'm sure you do as well.
I want to say that's like exclusively the work that I do. It's
Yeah, I believe
it's
it.
not just
Yeah.
about, what is happening. It's your perception of what's happening.
Hmm.
And if you can change your mindset about it, and we're not talking about taking um something really terrible and turn it into like sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
But can we just flip it so that it's more realistic?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does the world have to end because this negative thing happened? Like, yes, grieve, do whatever you need to do to process it. Um, but next month is a new chance, a new opportunity.
Yeah.
Like there's more in the future for you.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep
Yeah.
moving forward, be resilient.
Yeah. Keep moving forward, even if you take one step forward, two steps back, you
Take a
still
break.
just
Yeah.
take a break, just
Yeah.
keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, cool. Well, is there anything else you would like to add, Emily? Any other advice? Just any kind of thoughts?
I feel like we hit all of them. I added in a bunch of stuff already. I love the mindset work. That's so important for so many different fields, like yours as well. Um, and yeah, I think that we've covered it. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this was really fun. So a couple more things before we sign off. But what did I want to say? Oh, yeah, I feel like this topic, we could just be discussing this topic for hours.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're open to it, you'll be just the Wellness Abundance podcast go-to infertility
Sure.
therapist specialist,
Sure.
because I feel like there's so many different areas, especially with like the ongoing legal changes and everything too. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so first of all, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Sure. My website is emilyderricktherapy.com. My last name is Derrick. And Instagram, emily.derrick.therapy. Those are the best places to find me. My resources are constantly getting updated on my website. So you can feel free to just read whatever you want there. I'm open for questions. Like, feel free to give me a call. I offer free consultations. Um, and yeah, I'm willing to share whatever information I have and can, just to make everyone's journey more positive and successful, and willing to connect you with the right resources you need as well.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, now one more question
Okay.
is let's see, how do I want to ask this one? Because I was just thinking about it this morning. I was like, I think I want to switch this one up a little bit. I didn't
Okay.
send you this one, so um, and now I can't think of how I wanted to phrase it. So what do you think of when you, or I know what I wanted to ask specifically. It's the same topic, just a little different. What does wellness abundance mean to you?
I mean, if you think about the words, it's like a lot of wellness, right? So I think wellness abundance means like a holistic wellness experience. It's
Mhm.
wellness when it comes to mental health. It's wellness when it comes to having social support. It's wellness when it comes to your health, and uh, like wholly being cared for is
Mhm.
kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great answer. I love it. Okay, Emily, thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
The Wellness Abundance podcast is sponsored by Wellness Abundance Coaching. At Wellness Abundance Coaching, we help women lose weight effortlessly and minimize anxiety with clarity, empowerment, and flexibility. We offer one-on-one and group health coaching, corporate wellness programs, and on-demand fitness videos. To learn more about how we can help you become the healthiest version of yourself and to schedule a time to chat with us, visit melissaking.net.